Good morning, traders. Today is Friday, June 18th. My name is Charles, and this is the Pirate Traders live stream. All right, well, my apologies. I was a bit late getting up this morning, and so a bit late getting to the market. All right, so what do we got going on here? Okay, well, that weak J low is repaired because we opened below it. Okay, so yesterday the market spent most of the day balancing at these slightly higher prices up here around that 42.14 level. We did have a liquidation break during the day, which we've had quite a few of recently. And the liquidation break found support and rotated back up into the balance area that we had been in for the rest of the day. My assumption going into last night was that the overnight trade would just balance in the same area. The fact that it sold off below yesterday's low is, of course, bearish. Okay. So we're opening up this morning. We have overnight inventory was relatively net short, about 90%, 80-90% net short. So we would expect a counter auction to the overnight inventory. It looks like we just got that counter auction, and it did not fully fill the gap. Okay, we had a gap down this morning. So the first thing to watch on a gap down is, can the gap fill? It did not fill. It failed to fill, so that is bearish. Okay, that is what you would call a gap and go scenario. You go in the direction of the gap, in this case down. So yeah, that's the first thing to focus on this morning is, can we fill the gap? Can we get back in here? If not, it's a gap and go on the short side. I mean, it's bearish, right? Its value is lower. Value is inside of the previous day's range yesterday, so that just doesn't give us a good signal one way or the other. And then it is lower today. So that's increasing the odds the market needs to push lower. And we got bearish internals at the open here today. Obviously, we'd expect to give those a good half an hour or so to settle in, what with the gap down. But this looks like it's setting up to be bearish here. Okay. So I had to give myself a second to kind of just absorb what was happening here and try to get an idea for what's going on. So it seems like right now the market is temporarily finding support around the overnight low. So my guess is if this can hold, so if we continue to kind of chop and churn around this area, we may make another attempt at the gap fill. I wouldn't go long for that trade, but I would, if we got to the top of the gap, got to yesterday's low, I would be looking at that as a reference to enter a trade. Okay, so if it got up there and it finds resistance, that's a short for continuation down. Whereas if it gets back up into yesterday's range and then comes down and finds support at that level, that would be a long for continuation higher. Okay, and if the market gets back down below this overnight low and then tries to push back up and finds resistance, that would be a short for continuation to the downside. So as of right now, as I'm talking, it's still just finding support in this area, in this node. So essentially, I'm not taking any trades. Let me just get my pen up here. I'm not taking any trades between here and here. I'm just watching the market. But if it gets below this level, comes down, comes back up and finds resistance, I go short. And if it gets up to this level and either comes up, finds resistance, I go short with it, or it pushes through and then comes back down and finds support for the bounce, and then I go long with it that way. So those are the potential trades I'm seeing right now. As far as support levels below go, I would just wait first for this overnight low to break before I started worrying about that. But as I mentioned yesterday, there's not anything that really stands out at me. It's just old, lows, the low from 6.4, the low from 521, some old single print levels. But there's not really much weakness below us that needs repair. Good morning, RK Leon. Good to see you. Good morning, Mediterra. Malcolm back with us. Little shock and awe this morning. Yeah, that gap down surprised me for sure. Didn't expect that. Naif, good morning to you. Partha, good morning to you. Nor Auto Trading back with us. Marco is here. Nav Trader is back. Good morning to you. It's a good question. Was this sell-off news driven? Ashik, good morning to you. Am Gossel back with us. Good to see you. Shubha Deep, good morning to you. Good to see you. Nick back with us. Good morning to you. Stanley's here. Amir. You just bought the S&P 500. That's awesome. Welcome. Pavel, good morning to you. And Dr. Vijay. Great to see you. It's Friday. Smash a like button. Yeah. Please smash that like. You know I'd appreciate it. If we can get up to 75 likes by 7:30, I will stay with the stream for the rest of the day. So I'm just going to put it out there early, give you guys time. It's a simple thumbs up. It just takes one little push. All right, looks like we're trying to fill that gap once again. Can the market get up there? Marco, thank you, brother. I did just wake up. I haven't even had a sip of water yet this morning. I'm like straight out of bed, just raw. You're getting raw Charles right now. Okay, so at this point, passing back through the opening price would be bearish. We've now made a couple of attempts to get up in here and fill the gap, and we have not been able to. And that is just a sign that there are not buyers who want to participate here. And so at this point, passing back through the opening price again would be more bearish. So that's something to think about. It doesn't have to be the open exactly. You could consider it this little node of volume right around the open. So say if it goes below 41.74.75, that would get bearish. Thank you, Jason, for the hype. Appreciate you. Salmon River. It's a great policy, one that all should listen to. Shubaho Deep. Charles, how would you classify the open? The A period would be similar to an open reject reversal. No, so the way I often think about an open, particularly if you open outside of the previous day's range, like we did here, is I look at the overnight activity. Where did the overnight activity start? So they opened here and they closed down here, right? So I would expect that means most of the people were short in the market, right? More people went short than long. That's the only way the price could push down from here to here, as if a majority of the participants were short. So I would expect some kind of counter auction to that short inventory. And what a counter auction means is just quite literally when the market opens, it often pushes the opposite direction of whatever the overnight inventory was. And generally, however far it pushes, that kind of gives you an indication of how strong that counter trend will be. So the fact that this morning we opened and we had a counter auction, that was sort of the first attempt to fill the gap, but there wasn't a lot of buying appetite there. So then we came down, passed back through. Okay, so now we're about to pass through that opening price again. So again, it gets bearish below here. So we came back down here, but we didn't have much appetite for sellers either. So there was just uncertainty. So the market made another attempt at filling the gap just now. That's what's failed. That was the true attempt. The first attempt to fill the gap was just the counter auction to the overnight inventory. But this next attempt was buyers actually trying to push the market up there and fill that gap. Now they've failed. So passing back through this opening price again is very bearish because there is no longer appetite to buy here, an attempt to fill the gap again. Those people have given up on their idea. So now I expect we might see some downside move here. Looking for support. Okay, we got lots of previous lows in this area between where the price currently is at 41.70 and this low I have marked here at 41.65. So there's a chance the market could find support in here. I'm just monitoring for continuation to the downside. So when it finds support, how good of a job does that support do? If it doesn't seem that strong, stay with the short. Look for the next support lower. Great observation by Nirmal there. The SPX is now at its 50 daily moving average, which is also very strong support. So moving, back into the past. When that 20 doesn't hold, the 50 did. This time it broke through and needed to look for lower support. But the next time 20 broke, 50 held. 20 broke, 50 held. Again, 50 held. So here we are again. So what does that matter for today? Well, for one thing, and we won't know till the day closes, but if the 50 can hold today, it could set us up for a move higher, once again, like it has all these other times. But if it cannot, if we close today below the 50 moving average, we may need to look for stronger support lower, the way we did here. Okay? So it's an important level to keep an eye on. All right, back up through that opening price again. It's pretty bad taper down here at the low. I expect the market needs to push back down here and have a little bit more trade. At this point, the only thing that would make me bullish in this market would be filling the gap, getting above it, and then finding support at the gap. Right now, I feel like even if the market trades up to the gap, it'll find resistance there and then push lower. Yep, market internals. Bearish. Not terribly bearish, but bearish. The ticks look like they're trying to trend higher. They're trying to push back up above that zero line. But this does lean more bearish than bullish. 5-1 on the breadth. Negative ratio. That's pretty negative. And like that, out of nowhere, as soon as I say it, they get back above the zero line. So that is a sign of buyers stepping in here. So this is one of those moments where you ask yourself, what is the market trying to do and how good of a job is it doing, right? This uptrend in the ticks is a sign that the buyers are trying to fill this gap. They see this as doable, and they're buying to try to push price up there. But how good of a job are they having? Well, they're not. We're, already a half an hour into the day, and they haven't been able to fill that gap. So the buyers are not winning this morning. They're trying. There's more of them than sellers, but They're just not getting anything for it. So how long can they keep fighting this battle before they give up and get squeezed out of their trade, right? And even if they can, if they push it up and they fill this gap, they get up to this price level that they're watching and they're aiming for, what happens there? Do the people who are buying in this node of volume here, do they plan to take profits right here? And if so, what will happen to the market? These are the questions to ask yourself. So to me, this is weak. They can't get it up in there. They can't fill the gap. And so these buyers will get squeezed and the market will push lower. $42 likes, got to get up to 75. We got 30 minutes. $30 minutes, 33 likes. Can we make it happen? Can we do it? Do it to it, yeah. New period, new buyers. Yeah, I wish. Nope, same old buyers, new time period. Thank you, Arcaleon. I only got one like for it, but I appreciate the effort. Okay, so now we've begun to pull value lower. The blue shaded inbox that makes up the value area, starting to pull that lower. That's a little bit bearish. Okay, going down to repair some of that bad taper at the low. Shubaho Deep, yeah. The good taper, it basically, the numbers at the low should kind of slowly fade off. So the candlesticks should kind of get thinner and thinner as they go down and not have little random chunks that are larger than other chunks. And the numbers should get lower and lower as you go down. So this actually isn't too bad. You want it to be like, let me get that drawing tool up. Pretend these ones aren't here. Just pretend these aren't here. You want it to be like this. So it's like 2,000 contracts, 1,800, 1,500, 1,400, 500, 200, right? Like the volume's just getting lower consistently. That's good taper. It's when you have taper that looks like this right here. Oops. You know, where it's like it comes down, it's kind of fatter, and then it goes thinner again, and then fatter, and then thinner again. That's not good. So this is okay. And taper is certainly not that important of a thing. It's not something like I would ever get into a short just because there's bad taper. But if I had value lower, if I had a failure to fill a gap, if I had all these other bearish signals, and then I saw that, okay, now it might be important, you know? Back up through the open once again. The trend up in the tick seems to be holding. Correct, yeah. So essentially what taper is showing you is at the low, did the market come to, like, did it create this low because it was a good two-way auction process? Meaning you literally just ran out of ran out of sellers down here. There's just nobody else that wanted to sell. When you don't have good taper, when you have random little chunks of volume in there that are larger than prices above them, what it's a sign of is that somebody, right, put in a massive order at that level and that they're the ones that stop the price from going any lower. Somebody put in a massive buy order and just bought it up. That's not healthy for the market. The market needs a healthy two-way auction process. It needs to naturally run out of buyers, not have one buyer come in and force the market back up. So that's kind of what you're looking at there. The good taper is the sign that you just ran out of buyers slowly. Yeah, Kathy, again, taper is not one of those things that's like a big enough signal that it affects my trade. So it's not like, oh, the market made good taper, let me go long here, because it can make good taper and push back up and then come right back down again. Good taper doesn't mean the auction's over. It just means if that is the low, if it doesn't come back down, it's a good low. So yeah, no, don't get into a trade because of taper, but just use it as one more data point to consider in taking your trade. Miles, we are one time framing though. Yeah, I'm not sure what I said counter to that. We are one time framing lower. Ah, there you go. Good thing to know. Good thing to see. The market is one time framing lower. $95 red, huh? There's blood in the air. It is true, though, that society as a whole, we get moods. and the markets are affected by them. Also worth noting that today is an options expiry Friday. I forgot to mention that earlier in the day. Traditionally, what I have seen more often than not always, so this doesn't mean it has to happen, but just more often than not, you get very condensed days, very condensed ranges on options expiry Fridays for the monthly options. Oftentimes, the market just kind of grinds around. It doesn't really go anywhere. I have seen days where you do have tons of volatility, so it doesn't mean you can't. It's just more often you won't. So that's one more thing to consider here. Quad witching. Yeah, so for one time framing, if you are one time framing down, it's the highs that you're watching. And if you're one time framing up, it's the lows that you're watching. So now we're watching the B period high to make sure it stays below the A period high. And when the C period prints, we'll be watching the C period high to make sure it stays below the B period high. Okay? And remember, it can go one tick above. It has to get two ticks above to cause the cessation of one time framing. Okay? Marco, well done, my friend. Couple grand for your Friday. Kathy asks, do I prefer adding to a long when price goes down or up? Um, Yeah, I'm not sure I understand the question. If I'm in a long trade, would I add to the trade when the market goes against me and pulls back further down, or would I add to the trade when the market is going with me and in a trend? The second for sure. Add to it in the trend higher. It's rarely a good idea to add to a losing trade. It feels like it's a good idea because you're like, oh, look, I'm getting a better entry here. I should just add to it. But emotionally, it fucks with you because you just like doubled your risk whilst you're already, in the hole. So no, I don't add to losers. I add to winners. One thing I will do though is if I come back to my entry, I'll add to that. So like I go short at the opening price, the market pushes lower. When it comes back up to the opening price, if it feels like comes back to my entry, feels like it's still getting resistance in here, I'll just add to it, make it a bigger position for the next push lower. That's doable, but not if it went against me. Speaking of which, let's take a look at the queue. Look at the queue, take a look at you. What you doing today? Yeah. Okay, so the queue barely dipping, just a little bit below its overnight trade. The Q is not one time framing lower. It is in balance right now. Its value also much more bullish than the ES. ES value is lower, and the NQ value is overlapping to lower. Overlapping to lower signals neutral to lower. Yeah, this looks much more like it's setting up to go rotational, whereas the ES looks like it's setting up to sell off. Okay. So now we're heading back down, looking for that support once again in the ES. The buyers tried. They tried to fill that gap and they failed. Okay, we're creating lots of wicks down here on the regular candlesticks, both indices. That's a sign that the market's ready to roll over the other direction, in this case, rolling up. So let's see if that continues. All right, guys, we got 106 people here. We got 8 minutes until we reach 7:30. We got to get to 75 likes by 7:30, or we cut off the stream. Is there enough of an appetite to push that like button to keep me here? Do we have 17 souls willing to give me that thumbs up? JC, why does the SPY keep dropping? I mean, the simple answer is there's a downtrend in the market, right? The sellers are outweighing the buyers, and they're pushing the market lower. My guess is that's not the answer you were looking for. My guess is you were looking for me to give you a piece of factual information that would explain everything and make it all make sense. And unfortunately, markets don't work like that. Too random. Too many participants with too many random ideas. Normal, I don't understand your question. You trade the SPX, but you're looking to trade the ES. Do I think that volatility in SPX impacts trade? Yeah, I don't know what you mean. Do you mean the volatility in the Greeks for the options? Marco, yeah. So support and resistance lines in the market, Jim Dalton calls them semi-permeable membranes, right? The more times you poke at them, the weaker and weaker they get. So yeah, if let's say this level right here, let's say this is our support. If the market keeps kind of coming down and hitting it and then coming up, trading up here, coming down, hitting it, coming up, trading, coming down, if it just keeps doing that, yeah, eventually one of those is going to break through. Nav Trader, yes, I will be singing for you over the weekend. You just won't be able to hear it, but it'll be for you. Sean Franco, I forgot to upload a picture of my dog. Sorry. I'll definitely do that this weekend. It's an uptrend long term. Yeah, that is one perspective. But trends, they come to an end, right? Trends don't last forever. First, they age, and then they die. That's what trends do. Give me 1 second. Let me pull up the SPX here. Okay, so this is the SPX on the daily, right? So we had this range in here where we were balancing, okay, towards the end of last year, and then we kind of broke out of this balance, and we began this trend to the upside. Now you can see, if we're using the moving averages as a measurement of the strength of the trend, you can see that every time we tested the 20 in the beginning, we bounced right off of it. Here we dipped a little below, but pulled right back up and pushed higher. Same thing here, pushed higher. Okay? But eventually, after we poked and poked and poked and poked and poked at that 20 moving average, we finally broke through. So this uptrend got some exhaustion, right? And it pulled back down. Where did it find support? On the 50 moving average. Also, on this high right here, or is it? No, this high right here, right? So we had trend line that was support and the 50 moving average. Okay, or I'm sorry, support resistance line is support and 50 moving average. Okay, great. So then the trend pushes higher. Comes back down, fails the 20 again, tests the 50, pushes back up. Fails again, tests the 50, pushes back up. Fails again, tests the 50 breaks, right? You keep poking at it, it gets weaker, boom, the 50 breaks. And then we pull back. Where do we have to pull back to? A previous support and resistance to the left, okay? So then we do the dance again. Get back above the 20, it breaks, go to the 50, find support. Push higher, go to the 20, it holds, it breaks, go to the 50, find support. Do I sound like a broken record? This is how trends work. They work until they get exhausted, then they break. Okay? So that's just looking at the daily and the way it's been moving. So let's take a step back even further and look at the weekly chart. Okay? Let me switch to SPY instead of the SPX. That way I don't have all this stuff on my chart. Okay. So looking at this longer term, we can see that there is a trend, right? The trend is up and to the right. The market is creating excess over the months, pushing higher. But where do we find support for this trend? On the 20 monthly average. Pushed above it, came back down, found support. Pushed above, came back down, kind of broke through, but found support essentially. Stayed above it, came back down, almost got to it, found support, pushed higher, right? How far are we now from that 20 weekly? Look how far we are. To get us down to that now, that's, well, now we're on SPY. That's 406 on the SPY. Let's go back to SPX. So to get down to that 20 on the SPX, you're looking at 40.79. So literally 100 points from where we currently are. And we could pull back that far and still be in the trend. That's the point that I'm trying to explain. We could still be in the market going higher. Stonks only go up. But we first pull back this far to do it. What are these arrows? I don't remember putting these in here. Ooh, it's 7:31. Where are we at on the likes? 68 likes. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, man, the market sold off a bit while I was chatting. Okay, so in the C period, the one time framing lower continues. The downtrend remains intact. All right, guys. Only 70. We're 5 likes short. I guess I gotta go. I gotta switch to the private stream. Sorry, guys. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to switch on over to the private stream. As always, if you guys are members of the Brigade, you can give me 5 minutes, then head on over to the website, piratetraders.io/live, and look for that link there. If you're not a member, you can join the Brigade. There's a link in the prescription. In the description. It's a prescription for happiness, and you can find it in the description for this YouTube video. All right, guys. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you all back here on Monday morning.